overly convoluted. It really is kind of working through feelings, body, mindset, and that is how we experience that full vitality.
Hello, Profit First thought leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm so excited because today we have a special guest, and her name is Saska Nuila, and she is from Saska Nuila Coaching. She specializes in mindset and vitality coaching and the marriage of the two. And today we're going to talk about networking in person as well as virtually, as well as some other tips she's going to give us regarding optimizing our performance. Welcome, Saska, to our platform. It's great to
Thank
see you.
you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to connect with you and get to have this conversation. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. So tell me, your work is interesting. Your work is very interesting. And actually, your career path is really interesting too. Tell
Word.
me, how did you start and how did this evolve?
Yeah. So I'm going to make a really long story as short as possible, but I got into events literally in high school. So I was the CEO of our event company in like an ROP class in high school. So I got to travel to trade shows and actually negotiated our hotel contract for prom, then went on to work for several corporate companies doing their events and in-house trainings. And then in 2013, I got laid off. And then in 2014, I got laid off again. And I decided, you know what, the secure route isn't so secure, right? Like I can figure out how to get laid off all by myself if I want to. So I started my company, Nuila Events, and we specialized in entrepreneur events. So literally revenue generating events for small businesses. And what's so cool is I got to travel all over the country and work on some really cool projects and build a great big network. But what happened for me at the end of the day was the pace, the work, the building the team, the grind, it really wore on me. You know, I think a lot of small businesses, I love that. I think it was a Wells Fargo commercial where the small business owners like answering the phone for multiple departments and stuff. Like that wears on you after a while if you're not finding some synergy and balance in your life. And so I got Bell's palsy late one year. So half my face froze. I started struggling with my health in general, struggled to get pregnant, struggled in my marriage. And it sort of all was like, okay, this is the dream, right? Like I'm doing the things and I'm sold the dream of entrepreneurship, and it is a dream. But for me, it became kind of a nightmare in the sense that I wasn't a whole person coming into my company, and it wore on me. So it was really important to me to kind of slow it down. And there's a lot of different things that kind of happened divinely that came together perfectly. But what I realized is my story, my upbringing, my trauma that I've experienced, all of that stuff, you know, they say like leave your personal life at home and business is business. Well, unfortunately, we're human beings and we bring that into our business. And I learned that firsthand, that drive and produce and go and schedule and all that stuff doesn't produce, like we can grow the money and have the 5-figure months and the, you know, the clients and the high profile and celebrity, all that stuff. But if it's not married with that true life satisfaction, it's a mess. And so I went on my healing journey over the course of a couple years and then dug deep and learned how to take other people on their journey. And so now it's about helping entrepreneurs really marry success, using my experience in events to help with the actual running and everyday productivity in their business, while also supporting them in enjoying the full life and having the mindset for success as well as true life vitality. And so in that process, you become a person who's happy and healed, and that's magnetic, and people want to work with you and connect with you and network with you. And so it all works together, if that makes sense.
I love that. So really just kind of going back to that end goal, right? Like what's important to you, right? At the end of the day,
Yeah,
because it doesn't matter if you have it all at the end, but if you're not happy, right? It doesn't matter at
totally.
all.
Totally. Absolutely. And I you know, and I think people build their small business and they learn the tools and the strategies and the marketing and all that stuff is so important. But it's so easy to get lost in the productivity end that we just don't make time for who we are bringing to the table. And we see these really, I hate to bring up the sad news or saddest things, but we see these extraordinarily successful people then committing suicide, or, then getting divorced multiple times, or being estranged from their kids. Like, that's just not a story I wanted for my life. And so, like, on my way to my own success, I decided to make a pivot. And truthfully, in all honesty, once I started doing this work inside of my business, I made more money and created deeper connections and built a bigger network and enjoyed it more. So it all works really powerfully together.
I love that. So really just really going after your calling, right? Doing what you were meant to do.
Yes.
It's really what you're
Yes.
doing. And then naturally you're extremely good at it because you're doing what you were meant to do. And so many of us
Yep.
need to really listen to that calling and listen to the gifts that we've been given and zone in on those gifts, right? To do more in this world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very well said. Yep.
So, Sashka, I do want to ask you, because I know originally, and I do want to dive into the mindset too, the mindset work.
Yeah,
But before we
absolutely.
dive in that, one of the things that I am getting a lot of question on is sales, right? Sales and networking and how to get leads, and especially with COVID going on and COVID-19. And obviously, I can't think of a better person to ask that, right? With
Mm,
you having run a networking company, is how do we network? I guess in normally, like when it's not COVID, like
yeah.
2019, 2021, and what do we do in the meantime in order to
Sure.
be able to continue to grow our businesses and increase our leads?
Totally. Well, number one, and not to beat a dead horse, is being happy and passionate. So, like, in general, when you're happy and passionate, you connect with people, and people want to connect with you. Number two, though, and this is true whether you're in person or online, is finding your power partners. So early on in my event company, I worked with a mentor, Kelly Holmes, and she was really great at instilling in me these ideas that we have, like in events and in other industries, we have the same target market. So if we're selling to the same group of people, then we might as well group up and see ways that we can collaborate. So the way that works in my coaching business is I coach mindset and vitality, but I love working with health coaches who coach the body and coach nutrition. So when we connect, we create programs that we can craft toward the same audience. We can share each other's information back and forth. We can do, in the digital age, we can do Instagram takeovers and, connect that way. I can bring her onto my podcast to share about her experience. I think podcasting is the best way to connect with power partners too, because it's literally the same audience that we're speaking to. But so it's looking for who is it that is selling to the same audience that I can team up with and create some synergy there. And inside of that, it's also befriending the competition. So instead of looking at, we can learn a lot from our competitors, but instead of looking at people who are also coaching or also running event companies and seeing what they're doing so that I can take, right? It's how do I make it so that we are having a collaborative experience? It's my belief, and I was told this a long time ago, that 1 + 1 = 3, right? Because we have the two of us, but then there's sort of this third thing that happens, which is all the new ideas, which is all the new processes that we can think up when we're in alignment. And so those new ideas with someone who does the same thing you do is really powerful. So being willing to work and collaborate with competitors. And then lastly, be a giver. So I would say for me, getting to work with Michael E. Gerber is a great example. Getting to work with the all new Mickey Mouse Club cast, getting to do work on some cool projects came from, being in scenarios where someone would see someone of influence and go up to them. A perfect example is I watched this woman do a presentation at an event I was at. My friend was with me and she was doing a book signing at the end. And I'm like, great, I would love to go and do this book signing and buy her book. Well, my friend walks up and says, wow, you did such an amazing job. I'd love to connect with you more because I have the same problem and I'd like to learn from you, right? Well, the girl that was signing the books was like, okay, that's cool, great. You know, like she just wasn't very interested.
Yes
I
or
go
no,
up,
right?
yeah, sure, right? Take. Sure, you want to take from me. So I go up and I say, what a great talk, because I was taught this, sort of embodying that giver spirit. So I said, what a great talk. You were so engaging. I loved what you shared. Do you speak at other events? Would you be open to other speaking opportunities? And so that was a platform, that was something I knew I had in my back pocket that I could bring to the table. And long story short, to this day, she's one of my good friends. So we started connecting. I actually worked with her on an event project. She has since, gone on to do some other things, but we're still great friends. And that is the process of really networking in relationship, but also just coming to it with a truly giving spirit.
I love that. That is really some really deep, deep morsels there. I mean, just the whole collaboration, right? Looking for synergies and other people that maybe you can help their business, they can help your business, and you guys can help each other's audience, right? And each other's clients, right? And being able to work in partnership from that. And I also like the fact that you look at competitors not necessarily to compete, but how can we enhance each other? How can we do that?
Mm,
And I think that's so interesting because, especially in the business world, it's you hear a lot about what's my competitor doing, how they're pricing, what are they about to put out in the market that I need to put out, make it bigger and better. But it's almost an art, right? And you see this a lot in the artist world, right? In the
mm,
musician world,
mm.
where they collaborate to build, like you said, that power of three. And I think that is really great. And also just I love the giving. The giving is like,
Yeah.
ah!
It's so funny. I mean, I'm sure you've done a ton of networking. We've all been at that networking event where someone comes in and is just like, I need new business now, and so they're take, and sort of that desperate energy. And it's repulsive. It's a repellent, right? You just don't want to be around that. But when someone's like, and I coach people to kind of think before you go to a networking event, what are 3 to 5 things that you could easily reach into your back pocket to give to support someone, whether that's a connection, whether that's, event that you can give someone a platform, whether that's a podcast you can invite people to speak on. Like all of a sudden you become a magnet because you are helping other people. It comes right back to you all the time.
Oh yeah, and especially when you're giving. I mean, like, because you're not inward focused, right? You're looking at, I'm gonna find. I love your idea. What can I bring to this event that I can serve, that I can help somebody else? And then you're suddenly looking for your next person to help. You know what I mean? Like, who are they? Who's
Yeah.
their path?
Totally. What
Today.
a different experience than looking for someone you can get, right? Just get something from. It's so powerful. I love the way you said that.
And I often think about the elevator pitch too. And I'm sure, you being
Mm.
a networking expert, event planner, and heard the elevator pitches, where and I can actually imagine situations where I've been in the elevator with someone giving the elevator pitch and I'm like, okay. And then after they talk for like 5 minutes, you're like, they ask, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm just an accountant now. I'm tired.
No, no, you're not just an accountant, but I totally know what you mean. But listen, I used to have really bad elevator pitches, and I tend to overthink them, but I've learned over time that if we lean on our story, if we lean on telling a story as we're connecting with people, it's so much more powerful than, all of our accolades and the sort of features of what we do rather than who we really are, what we're about.
Definitely. So tell me about when you're working with entrepreneurs, because now you work in the coaching space, right?
Yeah.
And you really get in our heads. You see what's in our heads and what's really bothering us, being a mindset coach. What are the biggest challenges that you are seeing? What are you seeing that is stopping us from succeeding and getting the things that we want?
What a great question. I think I don't love to overgeneralize, but I'm going to for a second because I do think that these issues are different between men and women, generally speaking. I think women tend to struggle with validation a lot. So the number one thing that I end up helping women with is that sense of doubt and like, I need someone to tell me I'm doing a good job or tell me I'm on the right path or tell me my ideas are good constantly, right? So how can I teach? My thing is, how can I help you to validate yourself? There's nothing wrong with advice, input, podcasts, all the things, but everyone has different thoughts and ideas. So how do you at the end of the day go, this is the one for me, and feel good about it? I think that that's something I see a lot with female entrepreneurs. I think with male entrepreneurs, and I'm sorry to overgeneralize because there is overlapping, but I do want to make it clear. I think with male entrepreneurs, and in the beginning of coaching, I worked more with men. Now I work almost exclusively with women. It tends to be about the issue of vulnerability. So it's about that like peacocking, I call it, or just wanting to show all the best parts of ourselves, but not being willing to open up to the deeper parts. And what I mean by that is, if you're building a team, if you are connecting with prospective clients, if you're any of those things, when we bring who we really are to the table, and when we're willing to say, this was huge for me. I 6 months into my business started working on a multi-million-dollar event that was kind of over my head. But I also knew I was resourceful, and I also knew to say, you know what, I'm not sure, but let me find that out for you, right? And in the process of that humanity, it creates connection. And connection is everything in keeping a client happy, especially in a service business. So it's just that willingness to like open up and be a real human and let down the facade, let down the mask, and just connect with people.
I love that. I love that. And I love how you break it out too between there's a difference between the genders and how they respond, with men wanting to be more vulnerable to be able to connect, and women, just getting out of our own heads, right? Getting out of our own space to make room for
Totally.
other things. So how does, and I'm going to, in terms of a woman, right? How do we get out of our head, right? How do we step out of ourselves to become a greater version of ourselves, right? And
Yeah, I love the question, and the answer is almost too simple that people reject it. But I'm going to ask anyone who's listening to try this on, okay? And what we're taught in life in general, in school and all these things is, one, we need external validation to know that we're good enough. And two, a lot of times we learn that our feelings are just feelings. They don't really matter. They're just our feelings, right? And especially as women, it's like, leave the feelings at the door. Business is like feelingless. And again, overgeneralizing. But I believe the way we do that is actually mindset leads to our feelings, which leads to our behaviors and our experience in our body, which then leads to our experience of vitality in life. Sort of the way we work that process is almost backwards. So it starts with the body. It starts with going, where are my aches and pains? What am I feeling in the moment? How can I be more present? How can I just stop and take 6 breaths, which my coach taught me is actually scientifically proven to change your biochemistry. So literally just taking 6 breaths, all of a sudden you have a totally different body and different mindset. And then what is it that I'm feeling? How is it that I'm really feeling in this moment? Learning how to, okay, when I'm on this call with this client and my stomach is in knots because I'm so anxious about what's going on here, let me actually stop and pay attention to that. Give it some awareness, work that through my body, right? And so as we go through that process and work backwards, then we can identify the limiting thoughts and beliefs, and getting rid of them is actually really easy. But the problem is 95% of what's going on with us is our subconscious. It's in our body and in our feelings. So all the mindset work, that 5%, 5 to 10%, which we do by reading the books and doing all the things, well, all of it gets kind of swallowed by the subconscious if we don't work it through our bodies and our feelings. So without getting overly convoluted, it really is kind of working through feelings, body, mindset, and that is how we experience that full vitality, and that vitality and that feeling of enjoyment really is so impactful in how we connect with potential customers and how we show up if we're speaking, at an event, and how we network with people and how we build a team, right? It impacts everything. And yet it's the last thing I think we naturally invest in, time and energy. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah, definitely. And I can see that. I mean, you know, we live in a world of production, right? Where we are judged based upon how we perform and what we accomplish. And many of us, to take that time to stop and think about how am I feeling in the moment, and even deeper, why am I feeling this way in the moment?
Mm.
That's some deep stuff. That's some deep connection and some deep like realization and intuition there. And it's definitely things that sometimes you have to have a coach to move through those moments, right? Because,
Totally.
you know, it took years for me to figure out intuition and, oh yeah, I guess I do have some.
Right. Same. I used to operate like a robot, in some ways, and not be able to listen, not be able to slow down, not be able to be alone. I've since learned I'm a total introvert, but I was going so much. I just thought I was an extrovert. Like I love being around people. I really love being alone. And just was forcing myself to be in this role that I thought I had to be. And it just doesn't work that way.
An introvert in a networking company? Can't believe it. No. You did good though.
Seriously, that's why I had to pivot out. I mean, we did events and all the things, but really my job was mostly in the spreadsheets and mostly with my team. But I needed to move on because it was draining me. I really love and recharge by myself, but it took kind of stripping past the layers to even be aware of that because I was so production driven, so
Oh yeah.
accomplishment and task driven all my life.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that is definitely, the world that we live in,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And so my question is just to incentivize our entrepreneurs to really start taking that look in their subconscious minds and their mindset and really start to consider investing in this, right? How does this mindset work impact our profitability?
Yeah, great question. So, for me, it was instilled in me early on how to network, but it wasn't until I really did my own work and started. I've always done personal development, right? For years, my whole adult life, I'm just obsessed with growth, growth, growth. But then I was still like cycling around the same things until I worked on the healing piece. Once I did that, I I can't even quantify in words the difference it made in my business because we had exponential growth in the business. Literally because I was showing up, I had more energy, I had more enthusiasm. There was a point in my event company where I was getting one referral a week. And I think that there is and in an event company, that's a lot. That's a lot of referrals. But
I
there's
think
just
for any
no
business, that's pretty good,
substitute.
right?
Yeah, that's true. Good
For
point.
many small businesses, that's a good thing.
Yeah, right. Like we're all trying to figure out how to market and get our name out there and do the videos and the social, and just to have that business come directly to me, because when you are enjoying it, when you're a magnet, when you have other things to bring to the table and you're a giver, people want to work with you. And so I had those referrals coming in constantly, and I just don't think that there's anything that beats the free advertising of great referrals. And so that's one way. I also think that we end up, I think sometimes business owners, CEOs of small businesses can become really self-reliant a lot and think that we have to answer all the phones and do all the things. Once you get really crystal clear on what drains you and what energizes you, you get better at delegating. And once you get better at training and running a team and delegating, which are all things that are huge in this process, you can pull away. You can make more money. You can sell more. You can actually be in the driver's seat working on your business rather than in the business constantly. And so for me, it was a huge part of our growth in our company was me deciding to show up and do the healing work for sure.
I love that. I love that, Sashko. And, I think you say something really interesting too that really caught me with that is one, like you said, it helps you show up who you are and be able to give in a way that only you can give, right? Because that's your zone of genius, right? To be able to give in that way. But one of the things I think is really important, this is from a profit first perspective, right? Is, we work a lot with scaling businesses. So you're no longer a team of one. You're no longer the janitor, the sales guy, the accountant. You're a scaling business. You've got a team behind you. And part of beginning to scale and grow and leave the six figures into the seven-figure mark is realizing, what do I need to be doing that's my zone of genius that moves the company forward? Give the opportunity for someone else to shine in their own zone of genius where it's
Mm-hmm.
not really my zone of genius. And you're right, it takes some serious mindset work to get to that level when you're able to relinquish the thing that you used to do because you always did it, to let
Yeah.
somebody else who has their zone of genius shine in that area. And the only way you know it is by taking that step back and going, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be doing that anymore.
Yeah, yes, I love that. I remember so clearly. I was so irritated that day, but I got on this call with a coach. It was a virtual call years ago, and I said something like, no, but no one else can run the events like I run the events. And she was like, "Oh, really?" And I just in the moment I was like, this chick, like, you don't know. You have no idea. Oh my goodness, how right she was, right there. Once I pulled back and decided I am no longer running the events, I'm no longer in the day to day, I am delegating that out, I am building support around myself. It was a huge game changer for me. I was spending more time, actually, my office at one point was in the same building as a recording studio. My number one passion is music. And so I would dedicate Fridays to be in the recording studio. So we had events going on all over the country, people doing all sorts of stuff. But I was like, if you need me, this is where you'll find me. And it was so powerful for me to step back and go, I'm going to let other people handle things so that I can do what I love. And it made the company run so much better that way.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you got to do what you wanted to do, and you got to grow in an area that you wanted to grow in, and somebody else got to shine and run your company.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who really love the day to day of events. Like they love that drive, and I'm good at it, but it is not my zone of genius. I love feminine flow. I love chill. I love music. I love presence. And that was a huge awareness for me. I was not aware of that until then.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Now, Sashko, as we wrap up today, if you could leave our viewers and our listeners with one piece of advice, it can be professional, it can be over their business, it can even be personal. What would that piece of advice be?
I think in general, taking the time to take inventory and to look at the evidence in our lives of what is working, what we love, what fuels us, what energizes us, and really spending time getting clear on what is draining, what is not for us, and what pulls us out of just enjoying that experience of full vitality is so powerful. Literally sitting down and making a list. I love doing this. I hate doing this. I love doing this. This drains me. I love cooking, but I don't love dishes. Whatever it is, it can be however big or small. But investing the energy to do that, simply to bring some awareness to what's working and what's not working, is a start, and it's something, and will lead you toward the path of full vitality and life satisfaction and success and life and business. And so I encourage that.
Well, I feel enlightened today.
Yeah.
How can we find you? How can we find you to work with
Yeah.
you, to learn more? How do we find you?
Yeah. So I'm all over the socials, but my name is Funky to Spell. So I'm going to make it easy. You can connect with my podcast, Successful and Satisfied, at successfulandsatisfied.com. So you don't have to spell Sashiko Nuila, Successful and Satisfied. And then I'm also offering a free 30-day trial of my Envision program. So it's just kind of an ongoing mindset membership where there's live coaching and weekly coaching modules, and free 30-day trial if you go to envision, breakthrough.com.
I love it. Now, Profit First Entrepreneurs and Thought Leaders, I will go ahead and leave Shasko's information in the show notes so that you can click on her links in order to connect with her. Thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and your gifts
Thank
with us.
you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the work you're doing in the world. I love it.
Thank you.